When I was in the middle of my sickness and my heartbreak, everything felt so dark, I couldn't imagine ever seeing the light again. Every morning, I would try to put on a smile, try to be fine, tell myself the right things, thinking that I could think my way into feeling better. It wasn't working. And then, quietly, without any warning, these tiny, unexpected moments of joy started showing up like little flickers of light. Even in the middle of the hardest time of my life, they would just sneak up on me. And it was through these moments that the joy slowly started to compound. And as it compounded, I realized that I had had it all backwards. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. There's a concept that I came across in Father Richard Rohr's book, Falling Upward. If you haven't heard of Richard Rohr, he's a Franciscan friar and one of my favorite spiritual writers. I read it and something in me just settled. It felt like truth the moment that I read it. He calls it bright sadness. This idea that we can simultaneously hold deep joy and profound suffering at the same time. And for me, this meant that even in the darkest of times, joy doesn't actually disappear, it just gets quieter, crowded out by how loud everything else is. But it's still there, that little flame of light flickering underneath. And I want to be really clear about something before we go any further, because I know how this might sound if you're in the middle of something hard right now, if you're in the middle of a dark time yourself. I am not talking about toxic positivity. I'm not talking about pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. And I am not talking about skipping over your pain or your grief or your fear or your heartbreak. The pain is real. I know that. I've been there. What I'm talking about is something that can exist right alongside the pain at the same time without canceling it out. Because here's what I've come to understand: joy and pain are not opposites, they don't take turns, they can exist together, side by side. Before I went through everything that I've been through, I thought hard times meant that something had gone wrong, that life was supposed to feel good all the time. And when it didn't, that was a problem to fix. But now I know differently. The pain and the beauty, they exist together. That's not a detour. That's the path. Welcoming all of it, letting it all belong. That is what it means to be fully alive. And bright sadness, these small, unexpected moments of light that show up even in the dark, that is where we start. When you're in your deepest suffering, the gateway back to joy is cultivating bright sadness. But here is the thing: you cannot think your way into bright sadness. You have to feel your way there. Joy doesn't live in your head, it lives in your body. And getting back to it means learning to feel it, really feel it, not just understand it in theory. Let me tell you what bright sadness actually felt like for me. In 2024, I got really sick. For months, I was in bed. There were days my husband had to carry me up the stairs. And then I found out about his infidelity. And then I developed chronic pain. And then I lost my job and my friends. And I turned 40, all within a few months, all while living in a foreign country. If you want to hear more about my story, I'll link it in the description below for you. Suffice to say, this was a very dark time for me. And then one evening, I was feeling strong enough to sit on the edge of my daughter's bed and read her a bedtime story. I was still so sick that breathing while reading was hard, but I did it. And then I cried. Not because anything had changed, but because something inside of me, I can only describe it as a blooming, opened up. I felt it in my chest like a warmth, like an illuminating. like something inside of me was remembering it was still alive. That's bright sadness. Another time, walking was really hard for me when I was sick, sometimes even just walking around my house. But there was one afternoon where I was able to make the 5-minute walk to my kids' school to pick them up from school. And I came home and I just sat with it quietly in awe of myself and of my body, thinking, "Ah, I did it." And that feeling in my body, that quiet pride, that aliveness, despite the literal physical pain that I was in, that was bright sadness. And then one afternoon, I remember it was April. It was the first warm day we had had after months of the cold and being stuck inside. I was feeling really down, but I pushed myself and encouraged myself to get out into the garden anyways. And I had to bring pillows and blankets to prop myself up. And my son came out with me and he brought a book and I brought my book. And so we were sitting and reading together in the garden. And I felt the sun on my face for the first time in months. And I felt it move into my body as if I was becoming one with it and it was becoming one with me, not as a thought, but as a sensation, this warm, slow opening feeling. And it was like I was coming back to life. That's what joy felt like. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't everything's fine. Just like, oh, there it is. This is still here. And then I realized something. I could look for these moments. I could choose to seek them out, not force them, not manufacture them, but orient myself towards them. Notice them when they came. And when they did, I could really let myself feel them in my body, not just in my mind, not just know that they were happening. And it felt like a quiet rebellion almost. Like, in spite of everything that had happened to me, in spite of all of this pain and heartbreak, I am still going to choose to let joy in when it shows up. And I want you to hear this. You can make this choice too. Not to be happy, not to pretend, not to rush through your hardship, but to decide when a flicker of light shows up, I'm going to notice it. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to let it light up the dark, even if it's just for a second. That's it. That is where you start. And here's what I've learned happens when you start doing that. The moments get more frequent. The feeling lasts a little bit longer each time. The light gets a little bit brighter, and your brain starts remembering too, literally rewiring itself and building new neural pathways for joy. For the past 3 months, I've been living on a Greek island, and every morning I would walk down these long staircases of interwoven steps to get from my home, which was kind of higher up on a hill above town, down to the main square, which was in the center of town. And there's this one spot just between a sliver of two houses where if you stop, you can see the sea. And every single time I pass this spot, I pause and I feel something move through my body. This quiet, fully alive feeling, this gratitude that my body can do this, that it is doing this, that I'm here and that I'm connected to something bigger and something beautiful. That feeling, I could not have felt it the way that I feel it now when I was in the middle of my deepest suffering. Not like this. But it grew because I kept noticing, because I kept letting it in, because I kept choosing, even on the hard days, even now when things still get hard, to look for those flickers of light and to feel them. Like slicing into my avocado and finding that it's perfectly ripe, or the smell of orange blossoms when I step out my door, or the breathtaking sight of a gorgeous pink sunset. You know, these ordinary everyday moments too. They connect you to something bigger than yourself, to beauty and to life and to whatever you call the divine that's all around you and within you too. It all adds up. Bright sadness compounds. These tiny moments of joy, they really add up. Not because you're forcing happiness, not because you're doing anything other than paying attention, because you're choosing to welcome them in. And slowly, so slowly, they bring you back to yourself, to a day when all of a sudden you're feeling more joy than pain without even realizing it. This is what happened for me. And it was somewhere in that compounding of the slow accumulation of those tiny flickers of light that I started to understand something that I hadn't been able to see before. I had spent so long trying to fix my pain, trying to heal my anxiety and my depression and my trauma and my broken heart so that I could handle them better, thinking that that was the way out. But it wasn't. I wasn't healing to handle my pain. I was healing to welcome joy back in. And those are two completely different orientations. One keeps your eyes on the dark, and the other starts slowly, gently, without forcing anything, to turn you back towards the light. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you are in the dark right now, I see you. And I am not going to tell you that it isn't hard, because it is. And the pain, it will always be the loudest thing in the room, but it is not the only thing in the room. Start looking for the little flickers. And when one shows up, feel it, really feel it in your body, not just in your mind. Let it burn. Let it burn right alongside the pain. That is bright sadness. That is the light coming back in. You don't have to find your way out of the dark all at once. You just have to notice the next little flicker of light. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope I'm leaving you with a little bit more hope than when you arrived, even if it's just a little bit, that's enough. And if this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll be here every week showing up honestly, sharing what I've learned, and walking this path right alongside you. Until next time, be good to yourself. I'll see you then.